understandable English podcast.
Learn English the easy way.
Jessica, I urgently need to know how long the taste of terrible sour vinegar stays inside a human mouth. Because it has been 3 full days and I am still suffering.
Brian, what on earth did you drink? Did you accidentally swallow a bottle of expired salad dressing while trying to invent another one of your famous weekend recipes?
It was not salad dressing. It was supposed to be a fancy French wine. Welcome back to the Understandable English podcast, everyone, where I literally poison myself just to look sophisticated on a romantic date.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Whether you're listening to us while commuting on a noisy morning train, doing your laundry, cooking dinner, or taking a peaceful walk outdoors, we are so happy to be part of your day.
And if you have ever done something incredibly embarrassing just to impress a new person, please hit that like button right now so I do not feel like the biggest fool on the internet.
I think you are in very safe company here, Brian, but you have to tell me exactly how a romantic date at a nice restaurant ended with you drinking warm vinegar.
Okay, so I took this amazing woman to a very expensive, authentic French bistro downtown. The waiter handed me a wine menu that was entirely in French, and I suddenly realized I had absolutely no clue what any of the words meant.
You had no clue, not even a single word, but you lived in Paris for an entire month back in your 20s, didn't you?
Yes, but the only French I learned was how to order a basic morning coffee. But I desperately wanted to sound smart and cultured, so instead of asking the waiter for help, I pointed at the most complicated, expensive-sounding name on the list and nodded confidently.
Oh no. You decided to play along and pretend you were a professional wine expert just to impress your date. What did the waiter actually bring to your table?
He brought a glass of something that looked like swamp water and smelled like old socks. But because I was trying to cover my mistake up, I took a massive sip, smiled with tears in my eyes, and said it was absolutely delicious.
That is so tragic. You drank terrible wine for 2 entire hours just because you were too proud to admit that you did not understand a restaurant menu.
I drank every single drop because I thought I could get away with my lie. The worst part is that my date tasted it, made a horrible face, and asked me why I intentionally ordered fermented cooking vinegar.
That is the ultimate punishment for faking your adulthood. But honestly, Brian, everyone pretends to know what they are doing way more often than we actually realize.
You really think so? Because when I look around at other adults in restaurants, or in office buildings, or at the bank, everyone else looks perfectly confident and highly capable.
They only look that way because they are performing. Adulthood is essentially just a giant theater production where everyone is desperately trying to sound smart while secretly searching for instructions on their smartphones.
That makes me feel a little bit better. It is exactly like that classic situation where someone is talking to you at a loud party. You do not hear a single word they said, so you just nod your head and laugh, hoping it was a joke.
Exactly. We have all done that exact same thing to avoid feeling awkward. But I actually reached a point a few years ago where I got completely exhausted by all that constant pretending, especially in my professional life.
Really? What changed for you? Because you always seem so put together, calm, and perfectly prepared in every single business situation I have ever seen you in.
I used to sit in large corporate marketing meetings where the guest speaker would use terrible business jargon, like asking us to synergize our bandwidth or leverage our paradigms. I would just nod politely, even though I had no clue what they meant.
Oh, I hate those corporate buzzwords so much. I would definitely play along in that situation too, just so my manager would not think I was uneducated or falling behind the rest of the team.
That is exactly what everyone in the room is secretly thinking. But one day I decided I was tired of wasting my time. So when the speaker used a ridiculous acronym, I raised my hand and simply said, "I do not know what that means. Could you please explain it in plain English?"
Oh my goodness. Were you not completely terrified that the entire corporate room would laugh at you or judge you for not knowing the vocabulary?
I was extremely nervous, but here is the fascinating part. The presenter stumbled and could barely explain the term himself. And after the meeting ended, 3 different coworkers came up to my desk privately to thank me.
Wait, your coworkers actually thanked you? Why did they thank you for asking a basic vocabulary question in a meeting?
Because they had no clue what the acronym meant either, but they were all too scared to own up to their ignorance. They were so relieved that I was willing to look foolish so they could finally understand the presentation.
That is absolutely wild. So basically, 80% of the room was just silently pretending to understand, hoping they would get away with it until the meeting was officially over.
Precisely. That experience completely changed my perspective on looking foolish. I realized that being the person who bravely asks the stupid question is actually a massive social superpower.
I can see that, but it goes against every single human instinct I possess. My brain is strictly wired to cover my lack of knowledge up immediately with jokes, distractions, or fake confidence.
And how did that fake confidence work out for you with your romantic date and your glass of warm, fermented cooking vinegar?
Okay, that is a very fair point, Jessica. I ended up with a severely upset stomach and a very confused date who probably thinks my taste buds are completely broken.
You see, when we try too hard to maintain this illusion of perfect competence, we actually isolate ourselves from genuine human connection. Vulnerability is so much more attractive than fake perfection.
I suppose you were right. If I had just looked at the menu, laughed, and told my date that I was completely lost in translation, it probably would have been a really cute, funny moment for us to share.
Absolutely. You could have asked the waiter for a great recommendation together. Admitting you do not know something creates a bridge between you and another person, while pretending builds a solid brick wall.
It is so exhausting trying to keep that brick wall perfectly painted all the time. Speaking of pretending to be an adult, that reminds me of the time I joined a high-intensity CrossFit gym last year, just because my friends were doing it.
Oh dear, I already know this story is going to end with you injuring a muscle or embarrassing yourself in front of a heavy weight rack.
Exactly. On the very first day, the fitness trainer asked if everyone knew how to perform a proper kettlebell swing. I had never touched one before, but everyone else nodded, so I confidently grabbed a heavy iron weight.
Brian, that is incredibly dangerous. You should never pretend to know how to use heavy exercise equipment just to protect your fragile ego in a gym.
I know that now. I ended up swinging the kettlebell completely wrong, losing my grip and throwing the iron weight directly into the gym's expensive mirrored wall. It shattered into a million tiny pieces.
That is absolutely horrifying, and that is exactly what happens when the performance of adulthood goes terribly wrong. You literally shattered the mirror you were trying to look good in.
It was the most humbling experience of my life. The gym manager came running out, and I immediately had to apologize in front of 40 incredibly fit, muscular people who were staring at me in total silence.
At least you survived without breaking any of your own bones. But it proves my point perfectly. The pressure we put on ourselves to blend into a group can make us do incredibly foolish things.
It really does. Have you ever done something like that outside of your corporate office meetings? Surely you have faked it in a casual social setting just to fit in with your friends.
Well, there was one time a few years ago when I joined a neighborhood book club. They assigned a massive, highly complex Russian novel for our first month of reading.
Oh, I can see exactly where this is going. Let me guess. The calm, perfectly organized Jessica fell behind on her reading schedule and had to fake her way through a literary discussion.
Yes, I confess. I only read the first 20 pages because I was so busy with work. But when I went to the meeting, the host poured wine and asked for my detailed opinion on the main character's moral dilemma.
What did you do? Did you bravely admit that you skipped the homework, or did you try to construct a brilliant philosophical argument based on 20 pages of reading?
I completely panicked. I nodded thoughtfully, looked deeply into my wine glass, and said something incredibly vague like, I just feel the author really captures the universal isolation of the human condition.
That is brilliant. That is the most generic, academic-sounding sentence I have ever heard. Did the rest of the book club accept your profound literary analysis?
They completely bought it. 3 other women vigorously nodded in agreement, and one of them even said I had perfectly summarized the underlying theme of the entire 600-page book.
That proves my point exactly. You managed to sound smart by saying absolutely nothing of substance, and the other people probably agreed just so they would not look stupid either.
Exactly. Looking back on it, I am almost certain that at least half the women in that living room had not finished reading the book, but we were all performing this intellectual dance for each other.
It really is a dance, and it is so tiring. I feel like this pressure to perform constantly is getting much worse with modern social media too.
Oh, without a doubt. Social media is the ultimate digital platform for covering up our messy reality. People only post their perfect vacations, their spotless kitchens, and their well-behaved children.
Yes, you look at someone's photo feed and you think, wow, they have everything perfectly figured out. But in reality, they probably yelled at their dog 5 minutes before taking that perfect smiling selfie.
Exactly. And when we compare our messy behind-the-scenes reality to someone else's carefully edited movie trailer, we always feel like we are failing at being a proper adult.
That is such a comforting realization. So basically, the entire world is just a bunch of confused people carrying expensive briefcases and hoping nobody asks them a difficult question.
That is a highly accurate summary of human society, Brian. That is why it is so incredibly liberating to just own up to the fact that we are all figuring life out one messy day at a time.
You know, this applies perfectly to language learning as well. So many intermediate English learners are absolutely terrified of opening their mouths because they want to sound completely fluent right away.
That is such a brilliant connection. Language learners often try to construct overly complex sentences to sound smart, and then they get completely tangled up in their own grammar rules.
Right. They are so afraid of making a tiny mistake that they would rather sit in complete silence and pretend they understand the conversation instead of just asking someone to repeat themselves.
And just like my corporate meetings, if an English learner stops the conversation to ask what a specific word means, usually there are 3 other learners in the room who are incredibly relieved that someone finally asked.
If you are listening right now and you have ever pretended to understand an English conversation just to avoid feeling embarrassed, tell us about it in the comments below. We have all been there.
Or better yet, write this powerful phrase in the comments to practice your English today. It is okay to ask questions. Writing it down is a great way to remind yourself to be brave in your language journey.
I love that so much. Dropping the heavy mask of perfection is truly the fastest way to actually improve your communication skills and make real friends.
Now let us smoothly transition into our vocabulary tour for today. In our conversation, we used 6 extremely natural, everyday English expressions that native speakers use all the time.
Our first essential phrase is to have no clue, which simply means to have no understanding or knowledge about a specific topic or situation.
Here is a clear example sentence for everyday life. I tried to fix my broken computer this morning, but I quickly realized I have no clue how the software actually works.
Our second great expression is to sound smart, which means to speak in a way that makes you appear intelligent, educated, or highly knowledgeable to other people.
A natural example sentence is, during his university presentation, he used a lot of complex vocabulary because he wanted to sound smart in front of his professor.
Phrase number 3 on our list is to play along, which means to pretend to agree with someone or pretend to understand a situation so you do not ruin the moment or reveal the truth.
Here's a very practical example sentence. I did not understand the joke my boss told, but I decided to play along and laugh with the rest of the team.
Our fourth expression is to cover something up, which means to hide a mistake, a flaw, or a piece of embarrassing information so other people do not see it.
An everyday example sentence for this phrasal verb is, she accidentally spilled coffee on her white shirt, so she wore a heavy jacket all day to cover it up.
Expression number 5 is to get away with something, which means to do something wrong, foolish, or risky without being caught or criticized by anyone else.
A relatable example sentence is, my dog thought he could get away with stealing a piece of chicken from the kitchen table while I was not looking.
And our 6th key expression is to own up to something, which means to bravely admit that you made a mistake, told a lie, or do not know the answer to a question.
A simple example sentence for daily conversation is, the project failed because the manager refused to own up to his terrible planning mistakes early on.
Reviewing these practical phrasal verbs in a real conversational context is honestly the most effective way to build your spoken English confidence step by step.
It truly is. Thank you so much for spending your valuable time with us today, whether you were driving your car, doing household chores, or just relaxing at home.
Take great care of yourselves. Remember that you do not need to perform perfectly for anyone today, and we will catch up with you in our next episode. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone, and we wish you a wonderful, honest, and relaxing week ahead.
Wait, Jessica. Before we turn off the studio recording equipment, you need to know that last week I had no clue how to fix my internet router, but to sound smart, I decided to play along while on the phone with the technician. And I tried to cover my confusion up, hoping I could get away with randomly unplugging cables, until I finally had to own up to the fact that I actually just unplugged my microwave.
Brian, you somehow managed to compress all 6 vocabulary phrases into one disastrous story about your internet connection. And honestly, I am deeply impressed by your chaos.